So now that we've established, as seen in the discourse among Gamer Chuds last week and on this week's Jimquisition, since we've established body parts can be woke now.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because, of course, this is all quantifiable scientifically. What do you think the wokest body part is? And on an objective baseline level?
Well, my dick is usually up about 20 minutes before I am.
Oh.
I had joke answers, but I don't think any of them are going to be as good as that.
Honestly, he's killed the bit. There's nowhere to go, Conrad. That's it.
I'm sorry.
I had a whole bit about...
How dare you have the correct answer to the joke?
I had a whole bit about trans girl ear and like that phenomenon, but you know what? I'm just going to let the unaware cis listeners stay on the hook for that and spend the rest of their lives wondering what the fuck trans girl ear is. Pretty sure Laura knows.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
Yeah. Fuck it. Welcome to Podquisition, where we talk about video games. I've got nothing. Conrad, you blew it out the water.
I'm so
well
sorry.
done. No need to apologise. You cut to the chase. We don't need anything more.
Sorry, I'm flummoxed. I don't remember the last time that you, Steph, were the one to shepherd us towards this is Podquisition. What's the concept of the show? It's been a while.
It's been longer than the time it took for me to stop live streaming and start live streaming again.
Welcome back.
Yes.
It was great having you.
Yeah. It was about 11 months. I've not been live streaming, but I did do that last night at the time of recording. Paid for it. The old back injury has been finding new ways to be a complete cunt lately. And one of them is it hates my office chair. So I got over the big mental hurdle because, I had a real sort of depresso. I didn't really talk about it at all publicly, but I went through a really horrible depressive phase at the first half of this year. Got out of it a couple months ago and have just been getting everything back to where it was. So I get over the big executive dysfunction and the mental hurdle of getting back into live streaming, felt really accomplished. The immediacy of the physical correction of what I get for trying to improve my standing and do good things that I should be doing. I've been hobbling around. Bear in mind again, I'm a professional wrestler. I've gone through a door, sitting up to play Vampire Survivors. Too much to ask my fucko body. It is a compliment when people say, oh, HRT's made Stephanie age in reverse. I'm like, on the outside only. I wish it worked on the innards, but this whole thing is a condemned building. A condemned building on admittedly exquisite legs, but fucking hell, I will not pass an MOT again.
So, going back to the bit, I'm trying to dig the bit back up for just a second.
Right.
I did Google what is the wokest body part, and I didn't get a specific, generic part of the body, but the first thing that the internet decided to give me was, apparently, the least woke body is that of someone called Sydney Sweeney, who hosted SNL a couple of months ago, and had cleavage visible, and the right wing decided that her cleavage being attractive was the death of wokeness.
What was the name? Sydney what?
Sydney Sweeney. So I can't tell you the most woke body part, but apparently Sydney Sweeney having tits out is the least woke a body
okay,
can
so
be.
showing tits is not woke.
Showing tits is anti-woke.
Now, I swear to God, I can see evidence to the contrary, because I've seen a lot of tits out there that people take issue with. What the fuck?
I've shown more tit than this on the Jimquisition, and ain't nobody telling me I'm anti-woke.
I was gonna go the opposite, because this was gonna be my suggestion before Conrad, won the joke. I was gonna say, my tits are the most woke body part, bits of body but that cause anger. But apparently if your tits are hot enough, they double around and become anti-woke.
Huh.
Yeah, it is always interesting, when they decide to be perverts and when they decide to be Puritans.
Yeah.
It really is just, again, as I said on the Jimquisition about them having a go at woke chins, it's so arbitrary and it just suits whatever they want to, whatever they want to feel upset about at the time. Will, determine whether they're perverts this week or Puritans this week. But yeah, like I'm looking, don't get me wrong, right? Cracking pair of jugs. Don't get me wrong. Honestly, like that's a really nice dress.
Yeah. It's a real woke destroying dress, that.
I would say if I had tits like that, I'd show them off too. Except I do have tits like that, and I show them off too. Yeah. I want my anti-woke credit then for the Braglin. Because that was the Braglin I had on the Jimquisition was way more revealing than that. I'll host SNL with just 2 boglins strapped over my norks, and then I will be celebrated by by Grums on Twitter.
Oh, God.
By that strange little fella.
Right, well, welcome back. It's Podquisition.
Yeah.
We somehow squeezed some more minutes out of that bit.
Yeah, it's not the only thing I'd like to squeeze.
Who's played video games this week? Who's played some of them?
Who cares? Who's even seen a video game?
I've played a couple.
I've played mostly old stuff that, there is one thing new that I've played, and everything else has just been old.
I've played something I want to talk about this week, specifically because I think you, Conrad, would really enjoy it with Linda.
All right.
I think this would be a good you two game.
Uh-huh.
I started playing a game this week with Jane called Bokura. And this is a co-op platforming puzzle-y game in which you play a couple of kids who've decided that they're going to spend their Saturday afternoon climbing up a hill with a box of fireworks to explode them and destroy a statue of the mayor that's at the top of a hill.
I love it. Already. Sold.
Very quickly, shit starts to get weird. You see a dead deer in the woods and you both pass out. And from then on, both of you are seeing fundamentally different realities.
Oh.
One of you is seeing a world of colourful cartoon animals. You're seeing the pair of you as like a bear and a duck running around this sort of colourful, cartoony world. The other of you sees you as a pair of abstract robots climbing around this sort of grey-brown post-apocalyptic wasteland. But there is mechanically and visually a real disconnect between what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
In a game that requires you to be communicating and cooperating with mismatched information to solve puzzles together. One section of game that we played through, because I was seeing the world through this sort of robot lens, I was able to at one point remove my head and have my body run around separately from my head, which was very normal and regular in my setting, but caused Jane terrifying. Whatever she was seeing was a lot more fleshy and not pleasant. But the camera was locking to where my head was, because that was my player perspective. So Jane was having to lead my body around a level, because, we needed to, use my head to hold down a switch, but my body to be doing something else. So Jane is entirely giving me directions of okay, move a little to the right, do a jump up to the right, etc., to navigate through a level that I couldn't see at all. Or there was a portion of level where Jane had climbed up into the air on this chain and needed to be moved left and right, and she needed to move up and down to avoid some obstacles to get to a platform. I couldn't see any of this happening. All I saw was a box on the floor and Jane floating, and no real sense of why that was. And there's a lot of, communicating to work out what can you interact with, because maybe it's not interactable on my half. How do I communicate to you what I need you engaging with? On this very interesting, narrative-heavy, cooperative adventure. I like that the game does a lot of stuff with really shifting back and forth what elements of the narrative are going to feel inherently natural versus a bit horrifying, depending on your perspective on those worlds. One of the examples I can think of is Jane. From Jane's perspective, she found a little teleporter she could hop back and forth across the level with. For me, I was watching her head get drilled into with a drill and the light leave her eyes. And she was just She was just like, no, I'm a happy little duck getting in the teleporter. Do.
This sounds lovely.
It's fascinating. And one of my favourite things it does is, for a game that is as heavily about communication and cooperation as it is, occasionally there will be moments where you and the other player will get separated away from each other, and a little thing will come up on screen and go, hey, until we tell you, don't talk to the other player. And usually, you will experience some slightly different plot than the other person, and gain some slightly different information on the context of a situation, and then you will come back together, and without discussing what you learned, have to vote on a course of action. That leads to some really interesting, once you're able to talk again, discussions about what you chose and why and what happened while you were apart. All as a set dressing for this really interesting, you are forced to cooperate with each other co-op game.
I'm fascinated. I'm like immediately just like looking at it. I'm trying to figure out how, on a technical level, I'm going to accomplish it in the house. You know, like we don't have a Steam Deck or anything like that, so I'm gonna have to find a device that I can, like 2 computers that I can run this on in this place and not be on the same screen. But I'm fascinated.
Well, it is available on Android, and I don't know how it plays on Android, but because it's a code system, I would assume you could do one person on PC, one on phone. It's on Switch as well, apparently. I would have to confirm whether you can use them across platforms, but that could be a solution.
Yeah.
But yeah, me and Jane played like 3 hours of it together, and the reason we stopped was because it is very intense on communicating and cross-communication and having to be very precise about things that you can't see. But I really like it, and I'm very excited to come back and play another batch of it. I don't know how much more of it there is, how long it is total, but it is very engaging, and it's very well designed in how it partially obscures elements of its puzzles in a way that forces you to communicate puzzle information and then occasionally stop and go, oh god, that did something, I don't know how to explain to you what that just did. Oh, I checked, the 4.5 hours we played. We played a little more of it than I thought, but yeah, Bokura. I cannot wait to finish this game. I am so curious where it's going. It is currently 50% off on Steam. It's £2.30 for a copy, so a pair of copies is under a £5. Fucking steal at that price. What about you both? Either of you got something you wanna chat about?
Well, I played a Metroidvania that is pretty interesting. I've not been able to get too terribly far in it yet, so I'm still reserving some judgment, but it's called Animal Well. I think it came out in May.
Oh, that's a big Mode's first big title, isn't it?
Could be.
Yeah.
I really didn't look into it.
That's Big Mode is Dunky's indie label.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what first got it a bit of attention.
Oh, okay.
I did try playing like the first 5 minutes and didn't get on too well with it, but I heard it's fantastic.
I think you may need to give it a little more than the 5 minutes. And then that because it takes it a little bit to very, very basically introduce just platforming mechanics. You know, because the thing about this game is it squeezes every bit of juice out of what it's doing. So the first item that you get is a bubble wand that shoots well, it's not the first item you get, but it's the first truly practical multi-use item that you get. Is a bubble wand. It fires a little bubble out. You can stand on the bubble. When you jump off the bubble pops. When you are not on the bubble rises. When you're on the bubble sinks. Those are the mechanics of the bubble. And then it uses those rules and fits platforming puzzles around every aspect that I described to utilize every feature of the bubble. So you're going to use it to get to higher places. You're going to use it to traverse long distances with no platforms. You're going to use it to descend safely and reach points that you wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. that's really, really impressive. The extent to which they dig into all of the mechanical possibilities of the tools that they provide you is really good.
Yeah. It's not a direct comparison, but the best way I can think to put it is it reminds me a little bit of that sort of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style of there is a lot of flexibility in how you approach stuff, and you are going to need to use things multiple ways, and this only snowballs more as more tools are introduced, that every tool has multiple ways you can use it and multiple ways it could work with other things. That really, really gives this game a unique feel. I was in the same boat as you, Steph, where I started playing it and wasn't immediately caught.
Yeah, there's something about it that immediately made me feel, I don't know, alienated. And not in terms of its atmosphere. There was something mechanically where I was like, I just have taken an immediate dislike to this.
It's a very punchy, fast platformer for a game that doesn't require fast action, if that makes any sense. Like, everything's very precise. Not quite I want to be the guy precise, and certainly not punishing in that way, but very precise. Your timings do have to be right, and that takes some adjusting to.
Yeah. The thing that got me to stick with it is Jane had played through the whole thing and was very, very positive about it. I was like, okay, I'll stick with it, and I'm glad I stuck with it. It really starts to get its hooks in a little further in.
It also, if you're one of those players who, gets a little thrill out of finding that hidden wall somewhere and exploring it, this game's for you. The little hidden walls are everywhere, Oh,
people do love their little hidden walls.
And they're satisfying to find, because you start to look at a wall and be like, there's a wall there. There's a hidden wall there. I'm going to go through. And you're right so often that it feels really, really good. They just packed so much density into these. Another thing I like is it's very puzzle focused. And it feels very old school in that way of you enter this room, you need to do a series of buttons and or switches or get access to them to open up another room. And it all feels very contained.
That is less edifying to me. You're asking this guy to think.
No, it doesn't require so much thought as observation. It's like
even worse.
I see where the switches are. I need to get to the switches.
Yeah.
Or I see there's a door. There must be switches to accompany them. Then they are in proximity.
I'll give it another go. I will do that, sir.
Well, I hope you like it. I do think it is really, really interesting.
I love the visual style of it.
Yeah. I did turn off the scan lines after a little bit, though.
They can be overbearing.
Yeah.
In any game.
But Animal Well is good. I would suggest people take a look at it.
Well, we'll give it another go. Yeah. You've got me wanting to have another crack.
What have you played?
Not a lot. Was having a look at Game Pass today. Just having a crack at something.
Did you install Sherwood Builders?
Played. Yes.
I installed Sherwood Builders and then immediately uninstalled it.
Do you know what I immediately did? Yep, I had the exact same story. This morning, I downloaded Sherwood Builders. I didn't even swing a sword the first time.
Nope.
First of all, I don't know how to do it, because I was pressing the sword swing button and it didn't work. And the experience up until that point, which had been less than 5 minutes, was already mechanically unpleasant and aesthetically unpleasant enough that I just noped. I was like, you know what? I can already tell this is a waste of all our time. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting the game's time. I'm somehow wasting Phil Spencer's time.
Well,
I'm
that's
just going to uninstall.
I'd love to waste Phil Spencer's time a little bit.
That is true, actually.
It apparently has value to him.
Yeah, I'd like to just burn his trousers.
Not
with him in it before anyone says I'm threatening, but I would like to just get all of his trousers in a big pile with him under the pile, of course, and then set fire to it. Did you see that thing? He's given a talk at PAX.
Oh, really?
is old Phil Spencer. And the write-up has, well, some people are incredulous, insulted, infuriated by what it says. As it bigs up Phil Spencer, it talks about how his influence has been felt in such games as Minecraft and Call of Duty and the other games that his company has literally just bought and he's had fucking nothing to do with. People have been very rightfully offended by that. Although, as I pointed out, let's be fair to the man, his influence has been felt by every single game in this industry, because that number of layoffs has left a lasting scar that has affected everyone and everything in the business. So give the man credit where it's due. I really hope that he is allowed to celebrate that part of his legacy at PAX. What a cock. But yes, I downloaded and uninstalled Sherwood Builders. It looks like utter shit. I was playing it on the Xbox One, and it's clear they hadn't fucking bothered optimizing it in any single way for consoles.
Well, it wasn't particularly well optimized on PC either.
I can't imagine it was. It's one of them ones where you can tell, like, the UI and everything is so PC-ified and was not retooled in any way for a console user. You can really tell by how even some intangible things, like just where HUD elements are placed and where certain clusters of information are. It's like, this is for someone much closer to the screen than I am. There were buttons for like actual button prompts for the on-screen messages telling you what buttons do what. But in tutorial boxes, it did refer exclusively to keys. So that was one big clue. Plus, it does that fucking thing that a lot of games do, where they can't be fucked to do a bit of basic control optimization. The thing that Destiny made everyone think was okay, fucking mouse cursors on console. Don't do it. It's so fucking annoying. Making me... When just flicking a stick up and down or a D-pad up and down can go through menus, that's user convenience. Not fucking bothering, and I do think this is a case of bothering, not bothering to update your game on a console to where you can do that and making us use an analog stick to drag a cursor around. Like, just fuck off.
Again, I will say no better on PC. Listen, a lot of us use fucking controllers on PC too.
Especially for a game like this is a third-person action game. Yeah. A lot of people do, and when you're dragging an analog stick, it makes everything take longer than it should. It's irritating, and it's especially bad in this one because the sensitivity is like off. Yeah. So you keep overshooting the menu options. Yep,
and that was what really did me in. Like, was the first time I opened up a menu. And I was like, well, after the start screen, which I had to cursor on the start screen for fuck's sake. And then I start to play and I open up the first inventory menu and I think to myself, oh shit, this is going to have a lot of menus. And I'm going to have to use this analog to... No. I mean, I'm at a desk with a mouse. I could do it with the mouse. You shouldn't have to. But I will not. No. And I will be annoyed every time. And that's ultimately why I quit.
There are more complex, interesting, and important games that still couldn't justify you having two separate controllers. Unless it's something like a train sim with its actual fucking deck and that.
Or if it's me trying to min-max in some ridiculous way by utilizing multiple control inputs, that's on me. Fine, I'll take that. But that's the only...
Yeah, you shouldn't be switching
the only time is when it's my fucking choice.
And when it's that bad on just the start menu and the third-person action bits, there's a building element to this. I dread to think how unpleasant that would be. There's a certain game for which I use the word unpleasant, and I only really reserve it for that, for certain games that have a mechanical feel to them that makes my skin crawl, either through being awkward or stodgy in some way. Even though unpleasant, of course, as a word can be used to describe many different things, it's always felt to me the perfect word for input that feels bad. And that that just using the menu was unpleasant. And I dread to think how awful it would be trying to make a little fucking village or whatever it is you do. I didn't get that far. It gave me the buttons to swing my sword, and I pressed the buttons to swing my sword, and he didn't swing his sword. And I was already just so unimpressed that I did not want to work out whether I needed to press another button first. The tutorial didn't tell me I did, so I stopped. Downloaded Hot Wheels 2, because that was on Game Pass. I played the first Hot Wheels a couple of years ago. I did talk about it on this show. It was cute. It was fine. That one was more of the same. I just didn't feel like playing it again. I was like, yeah. Actually, no, I remember what it was. I was playing it, and then the new race mode, like campaign mode or whatever, has fucking cutscenes with these fucking cartoon kids. And I just immediately turned off. I'm like, no, not doing it. I'm sure as a game it's fine. The first one was fine. It was monetized to fuck, and I'm sure this one is too. And I was just like, you know what? I don't need this. So instead, because I was feeling a little racy, put on Forza 5 Horizons. Didn't want to start from scratch. I didn't get very far in last time, but I tried one race, and I don't know if I just had a really shit car or what, but I could not get out of 8th place, and I'd forgotten how to make drifting work. So I just stopped because I was getting really annoyed. And that was it. The only other game I played is Vampire Survivors. That's the only one I played to any degree. I've been a bit behind on, like, staying caught up with Vampire Survivors. You know, despite, like, doing work on it, I'm actually shamefully a bit behind on it.
No, that's all the more reason not for you to, because that's your day now. Your day is, and so it's going to be your night too.
I mean,
you know?
There is an element of that, like,
and it's healthy to have some of that separation.
Yeah. Especially, you know, when you've started to interact with a game primarily through a spreadsheet.
Yeah, changes the dynamic a lot.
Yeah. It's not as, I don't even want to use the word bad because I love the work I'm doing at the moment. It's not as spreadsheety for Vampire Survivors because that's mostly me just hurling words at Ponsel and being surprised when they approve of them. And just the level of creative freedom and just the shit they let me sort of just throw at them is great. Another game I'm working on, I spent most of this year in a spreadsheet and actually playing the game, because I played a test build, is weird. It's weird not seeing it as just a spreadsheet now. But yeah, fun stuff. So I am behind on it. The last time I played to a great deal of degree was the second DLC, the Foscari DLC. I had a little look at the adventures and a little bit of the Among Us DLC. And this week, because I was live streaming again, and we've got a saying in this house, there's always Vampire Survivors. Couldn't think of anything to play for my little comeback stream, so I was doing some Vampire Survivors, trying to get back into it, get caught up with the newer DLCs. And Conrad had mentioned this in the stream chat last night, but it is overwhelming at this point. It's intimidating, where the game has had so many updates and there's so much new content. There are so many new weapons with their synergies and all of that. You know, thank God there's the start menu grimoire that lets you see all the evolution combinations. But I think what would really help me would be a similar thing for the tarot cards, the random answers, because I really like to center builds around those. You know, I really love ones like the one that makes the bone useful, because I love Mortaccio, the one that lets the bone explode and deals damage relative to your curse rating. And, you know, things like that have lots of very specific weapons they're attached to. And once you pick a card, without looking it up on your phone or whatever, you don't have access readily to, when you're picking weapons, see which ones are relevant to the cards you have. And I would like that because, yeah, there's just so much. And it's not a massive deal in the grand scheme of things, but it does end up making me less willing to experiment sometimes because I can't see all the information I need for the kind of build I'd like.
Yeah, just a little icon to go, this will stack with one of your arcanas would... I can see that being useful.
I think I would need the neuralizer from Men in Black. I think that would be necessary for me, because my issue comes in at, like, if you're coming in at a clean slate, if you have no experience with Vampire Survivors, all of this feels explosive and natural as these things unfurl and develop. I have not played Vampire Survivors since August of last year, according to my Steam records. And when I think about not, setting aside the paid DLC stuff that I haven't bought, but just the changes and additions to the base game in that time, and I'm like, I know what this discovery process is like already, and I feel like I'd already done it. And to now go and do it again with so many more expansive options just feels overwhelming and exhausting. And it's fine, I got my money's worth out of Vampire Survivors.
I mean, it's very much an embarrassment of riches situation. It's great that the content is there, but that absolutely carries a risk of intimidating someone who is coming back to it.
And I worry that it could, if it persists too long, it can reach Isaac levels. And I find Isaac almost unplayable at this point. It's just
hard.
Too much.
Yeah, going back to it. It is tough.
I've felt differently about this, and I think it's mainly because, I've been playing these DLCs as they've been coming out.
Sure.
And I've been sort of having less of it build up, I think has definitely helped. And it's also... I've been playing it very regularly, even when there's not new updates, because having it on my phone has made it a really good... I need to be paying attention to say something I am listening to, but I'm like, the ADHD's having a real rough day, and I just need something that I don't need to give too much input that's going to keep me engaged, and Vampire Survivors has really been that for me. But I do think about the fact that as they've added more expansions, the game has added more abilities to seal certain things to stop them showing up in your runs. I think maybe instead what they need as an option that might help is the ability to just seal everything from one of the DLCs.
Yes.
To just go, I just want to turn this DLC off for a bit, and nothing from this DLC shows up, and I turn it back on later.
I think that would be really good, especially with the crossover DLCs, because some of those weapons and synergies and things have a lot more dramatic behavior departures from the base content. The Among Us stuff, with their evolutions being very specifically tied to little emoji guys, and just some of their behaviors are such a radical departure that can really change how you interact with the game. Yeah, I totally agree. Turning off the DLC would be a handy feature.
Yeah, because I know that functionally you could just turn most of it off with seals, but it feels like it would feel a bit different to just go, here is one button, that DLC stuff is quarantined for now.
I need to look into that stuff, because I didn't do that last night when I was streaming, and I decided, as a nice little treat, because I never do it, I'd evolve the bird. The dove.
Oh, I love the birds.
And I never do it because it is, it's one of those things that starts off as a liability and is a big investment, then turns into something big and cool at the end. And I rarely want to be bothered. And last night I was like, as a treat to me, I even got the Arcana that gave them the little duplicate buddy. It took me until there was 10 seconds of the run left to evolve it. I had 10 seconds of that evolution. I had burned through every banishment I had, every reroll I had, every skip.
Yeah.
I was bottlenecked until the very last choice.
You've really got to lean into buying and using all those seals.
Yeah, if you don't really, really sort of knock out as much extraneous guff. And also, just to answer the idea of having to go through all the unlocks and stuff again, I will say, to the game's eternal credit, the passcode system. Mwah. Thank you so much, Ponsel, forever for that. Because there's some stuff right now where it's like, I want to unlock this thing, but to do that, I've got to unlock this thing first. But to do that, I've got to go back and unlock this. And it's that chain of deals. And some of it, I just can't be arsed. And what I love about Ponsel and Luca's attitude to this game from the off is they just want you to have fun with it. That's all they want. They want this game to be Dopamine the sequel, as it has been called by people, and that's what it is. And part of that is, if you don't want to work and grind to unlock a thing, we've got your instant gratification right here. And they even show the codes. Like, when they have an update with new content, the store page, the announcement, will tell you how to unlock it, or how to unlock it with a code. They'll just give you the code. I really admire that, where it's like, yeah, you can put in that grind if you want, which is totally valid. And I will do that for some stuff, because some of it will be rewarding for me. But it was really handy with some of the base game stuff where you needed to type on a keyboard really quickly when something happened in game. And I wasn't doing that on the Steam Deck. Hell no.
Yes.
I can't even type slowly with that clunky fucking UI. So getting stuff like the Toasty character was really good. I don't think his name's Toasty. No, it's...
I think it is,
yeah. Little red ghost. It doesn't matter. Ghosts don't exist in that game. Everyone knows it.
Convenience aside, it is such a preventative measure against get good assholes.
Yes.
Making your game a focal point for some sort of absurd, ridiculous challenge.
Yes. And that is absolutely... You know, I've not had great in-depth conversations with Luca about the game design. You know, we almost only ever really talk about the work I'm doing. You know, we mostly just talk business. And even then, not often, because they're busy as holy fuck. But, you know, everything from my conversations and just playing the game, like that philosophy is just... This is not about gatekeeping anything. This is not about depriving you of that dopamine, that fun, that gratification. It's always about... It's the antithesis of the slot machines that Luca got his start on. And eliminating that get good bullshit is a huge part of that. And I think part of the reason why... I think it's a big part of the reason why the game is successful, is as successful as it is. It's not just got that addictive loop. Anyone can have a crack and engage with it in at any sort of level they want. And that's great. As far as the new content goes, the adventures are really cool. They're really cute concepts. And I can't say much. But as far as the DLCs go, the crossover stuff, the Among Us and the Contra stuff, neither of those are games I'm super into. I've played Among Us once on somebody's live stream, and I just don't have people that are into that sort of thing. I think I'd play it more if I had friends who were into that. If I had friends who were Among Us fans, I'd probably play it more. As it is, I totally appreciate it. I appreciate what a phenomenon it is. It is very cute as a game. The DLC's great.
Right.
The way they've integrated stuff into it. The new weapons are both thematically relevant and just a lot of fun. The fact they got so many playable characters out of it is also really good. And so many cool weapons out of it. You know, like the imposter like type weapons, like the tentacles and stuff coming out. Those are cute. There's like a trash compactor or a vacuum thing that just sends loads of debris down, or the scientist's weapon that just throws loads of like space rocks around. That's really cool. The music on the levels also fucking lovely. The main Among Us DLC level is a great map. Really well designed, beautiful music. I like the little conceit of running around to press buttons for rewards and stuff. That's cool. The Contra stuff, I've played Contra more than Among Us, but I think I like Contra less than Among Us. It's not that I don't like Contra, it's just as a series, it's never appealed to me. The style and I don't hate it. It's just, if Contra was at an arcade and it was a free play, I'd probably give it like 5 minutes and be like, cool, Contra, and move on. I mean, no disrespect to it, it's just not got any special meaning for me. But again, works really well for Vampire Survivors. The way they've integrated the weapons is really cool. The enemies fit right in. The map, I don't think is as good as the Among Us one, but it certainly looks the part. I was playing the main Contra DLC level on stream and someone was like, I recognise those bridges. They look exactly like the bridges. So that's cool. There is a proper boss fight at the end of the Contra level. And it's, it's not mega complicated, but it's one of those things that Vampire Survivors does now and then, where it throws in this little twist to the gameplay, where it obviously doesn't change its mechanics, but it just makes playing it feel a bit different. And having a Contra-style boss, or well, literally a Contra boss, in Vampire Survivors, it just works really well. It's a really cute little thing. And also the laboratory update, the original content update that I believe was free. Laboratory was a free update, was it not? And that came with a level and stuff, and a whole new tile set and all of that. Also, really good music, really fun level, with some nice little lore stuff that I didn't do, actually, but it's given me some ideas. So that was it. I've been enjoying getting back into Vampire Survivors.
Nice. The only other thing I've really played this week is I have played through, I think, most of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC for Elden Ring. I have the item that will get rid of the thing blocking me from going to what I assume will be the final boss. I am maybe 1 or 2 bosses from the end of the game, I would imagine. And I think that DLC is interesting. So, how do we even start talking about it?
I think you scream. That's how most people started talking about the DLC. They started with a big old scream.
I think a lot of the people who are hyping this up as, like, the difficulty is ridiculous, I think are people who had forgotten what it is like to go through the opening of a Souls game.
Yeah, I think we touched on this last week, yeah.
Yeah, and that very much feels like it is the case. It is, because the DLC has its own leveling system, and I'll talk about that leveling system in a second, but because it scales with your character level so that you're forced to engage with its new leveling system, it is like starting from scratch. And you have to get out of the mindset of what you were doing 5 minutes ago and go, this is a new Souls experience where I am back to the point of everything will kill me, I can't really brute force through things yet. But honestly, I really like the leveling system this has, and I think it does a good job of, particularly given this is a maybe 30-hour DLC, of making your progress feel more tangible and faster than the pace of making that same kind of progress in the main game. There are these tree fragments and these spirit fragments that you can find around the world, and largely, by and large, they don't require you to fight anything. They are found at churches, at statues, at these sort of these glowing crosses across the land, and you can just run around grabbing these upgrade materials, largely without fighting things if you want. These have a more noticeable impact per level up than gaining a level from souls or runes would do. I think it is something like an 8% increase in your damage output and your reduction, the reduction in damage you take. It's something like 5 to 8%, and it's front-loaded, so the first half of the levels give you a bigger boost, and sort of they slow down a bit in the latter half, which means that, like, just picking a couple of these items off the ground and cashing them in makes, like, a very noticeable difference to your survivability and your ability to hit hard. I like that. I wish that these were a little better signposted. I think a lot about the fact that one of the things that worked really well for, say, Breath of the Wild was that you could find a really big outcropping and look over a big field and zoom in with your little binoculars and go, I see a shrine over there, I'm going to drop a little pin on it on my map and journey over there. The crosses and statues and things that have these items are not nearly so recognizable looking out from a large outcropping, which makes you kind of just have to stumble on them or get NPCs who give you maps to them, which are shitty hand-drawn maps that are really hard to follow, or just do what I did and fucking Google where they are and go find them that way. But one of the things that they do is you've got these tree ones that make your sort of defenses and offenses more powerful, but there's also ones that level up the strength of your spirit summons, your ashes. And I think those are, if anything, more impactful, because those can really allow your spirits to take a bit of a beating. And for all the complaints that, like, I've seen people making about the fact that this definitely does skew a little bit more towards fast and aggressive boss types than perhaps the base game did, I think it kind of counters that a bit by the fact that you can summon in your little mimic tier that's a little ghostly version of you, and they can take a hit and draw aggro better than they could in the base game, and give you that breathing room to do things like charging up that big charge attack you want to hit the enemy with that you might not be able to otherwise. I don't think the DLC is without problems. Specifically, the DLC map has introduced a lot more verticality. And that's not necessarily a problem, it's interesting from a design perspective. But the overhead map you're given often deliberately obscures paths that are vital to game progression, in the sense that you can often find that large chunks of the map you're trying to identify how to reach, the map does not in any way show you that there is a pathway that would get you there, because the pathway is underneath another layer of environment that's the only thing being shown on the map, and it's in a really unintuitive place, and is going to take you on a weird, long, winding, circuitous route. And in the base game of Elden Ring, the game did a pretty good job of, like, you get to a bonfire, and the map will sort of point you, go this direction, you'll find the next bonfire that's leading you towards what we recommend is the next place you should probably be going. And it was pretty good about doing that. The DLC, I don't know if this is just my experience, but I went and killed an early game boss, maybe an hour in, and rested at its bonfire, and I looked at the map, and it was like, okay, the next place you should be going from here is this bonfire, and I go in that direction, and it's a dead end, it's the end of the game, it's the location I have to do absolutely everything in the DLC to access, and it's currently not accessible. And I was like, cool. So for 2/3 of the game, I had no map markers telling me this is the recommended next bonfire to try and head towards. Because apparently I fought a boss that was kind of proximate to the end game location, and it just went, well, from here, the end of the game's over there. Which meant that, like, the already kind of deliberately obtuse navigation of this new, more vertical layout got all the worse. I've enjoyed a lot of the new weapons. There has been some really fun new weapons, particularly some of the boss weapons have been really fun. I have been playing with a sword that when you dual wield it becomes 2 swords, and one sword does like basic magic damage and one does fire damage, and you can be a fire tornado or you can be sending magic energy bolts out of your sword. But it's also just a very quick, dexterous jumping about sword build, and that was really fun. I've been messing around with, there is a new weapon that is just bottles of, like, poisonous perfume that you swing around that create, like, poison gas clouds, which is surprisingly powerful and let you sort of, like, twist and twirl around doing this little dance as everything gets sick around you. Having played it, I was surprised at how easily I fell back into the rhythm of that game. I have very much enjoyed it. It's a nice little additional slice of that game that was not as intimidating to get back into as I feared it would be.
Nice.
Yeah. You played anything else, Conrad?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what I haven't been playing. I haven't been playing Metal Slug Attack Reloaded.
Yeah.
Because I have reached the point of Metal Slug Attack Reloaded where not playing the game is truly the best way to make progress.
Oh no.
Oh
no.
once you've cleared a certain number of levels in the world map, it unlocks another story. And another story is a secondary mode with more little vignettes and one actual stage, a boss stage that needs to be completed for every army in the game. Okay? And your unit choices are limited to that army, which means in order to complete them, you'll need to have built up a force's worth of units to take on that boss fight. The kicker is your progress in the larger world levels that would get you to unlocking items at higher experience levels for your characters. It's all walled off by your completion of the first level in each army's other story. So you have to have built a force for every faction in the game at a point. And I cannot imagine what this was like, how tedious this would have been in the microtransaction filled version of this. Because I can tell how much extra currency they're fucking throwing at me. You know how I know? Because I have to spend 20 minutes going through the act of recruiting units on the currency that is awarded once the first time you clear a boss. But you know how it's also awarded? It's awarded when you complete the side mission objectives in 500 quantities. So after I've spent 20 minutes just burning through that currency to recruit everything and drain it to zero, I come back out to the main menu and, oh, lo and behold, here's another 3,000 fucking points for having just done that. So I can go back and spend another 20 minutes doing that. And to get the resources to build all of the, units up that I need to make progress in another story, I am just replaying the same 8 missions basically over and over again to get the items and then slot them in the end. It's Steph.
Yes.
It's like your Vampire Survivors experience when you're working on it. I mean, well, not really, but you're making the comparison to the spreadsheet. I'm playing the spreadsheet here. It's truly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I am all right. So I need a monkey. All right, a monkey is a reward for level 8. So I navigate over there, and then I press the enter button a bunch of times, and that starts the level. And then this is what's so fucking insidious about it. So there's an autoplay function here. The AI will play the game for you, right? But what the AI's goal is to destroy the boss, right? My goal is to collect resources. Resources are acquired by rescuing the POWs in every level. At this early stage, there are only 4. I'm sure at higher stages that increases a little bit. But here's the thing. The trigger points for the POWs are a little bit above head height for an average unit's height. So you have to have an attack that fires somewhat upward, like the basic infantryman's grenade. But if left to the autoplay, it won't deploy its grenade until it has an enemy to hit. Meaning it will travel half of the map in this, base defense game, not firing the attack that would reveal a POW, and they always stick 1 or 2 of them towards the front end, meaning you have to manually tell it to engage in the attack. The game is still forcing you to engage with it, even in its autoplay mode, if you want to progress. It is shockingly insidious. The extent to which they're like, oh yeah, no, this is hands off. I mean, unless you want to actually, get anywhere. Fucking brutal. But yeah, that's the experience. Is that I tap the attack button a few times until I see one POW has been rescued, and then I can generally safely assume that the rest will. And then I let it sit for 20 seconds while it finishes the battle. I see what resources I've gotten briefly, but I'll just run that same level 5-6 times because I know I'm going to need more of whatever the rare resource is until I feel fairly confident I've got 5 of those in stock. I'll do that over and over again, and then it's back to the spreadsheets, back to the menus, and filling slots. It's depressing.
Yeah. I did not keep going with that game, and it sounds like I made the right call.
No, you absolutely... there is something... Look, if you like to tick boxes, like, if that is a thing for you, and it's absolutely a thing for me to tick boxes. I am very easily compelled in that direction, especially if I don't have anything else to do, or I am engaged in a task that this level of interaction is still feasible. I'll continue to do it.
The way I use Vampire Survivors, it's just sort of there.
Right.
Just in reach.
Yes. But it's not good. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. Actually, it's satisfying in a strange way. But it's not fun. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep playing the fucking thing, though.
Sometimes you get a game like that where you're like, I know you're not good.
Yep.
I got it though.
Yep.
Should we jump onto a couple of bits of news before we finish up?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a technically video game related story, but has positive implications much wider in the UK in terms of employment law. Cloud Imperium Games, the developer of Star Citizen, has been forced to pay £27,000 to a disabled worker as part of a return-to-office discrimination claim.
I guess they're going to release a new ship then? Cover this?
Here's the gist. The person involved in this was a senior programmer at Cloud Imperium Games. He was working from their in-office location, and then, everyone, worked from home for a little while during the peak of COVID, and then, a company starts trying to get everyone to come back into work, and specifically, they were opening a new office, and it was going to be, 15 miles extra travel to travel to this new office, and this guy, Paul, this senior programmer, was like, hey, I would like to be able to keep working remotely, rather than having to do this larger commute and be in the office. Specifically, Paul is autistic, and basically said, hey, I functionally, if I have to, can work in the office, but it destroys my quality of life, and working from home, my work quality and quantity haven't dropped, and my ability to live my life outside of work is infinitely better. I think it is a reasonable accommodation for my disability to be allowed to keep working from home because the infrastructure exists and there has been no problems with my work from home.
No one needs to, right? No one should have their quality of life impacted so that landlords with office spaces get paid, which is what it's about. Fuck's sake.
Yeah. So, Cloud Imperium Games did not respond well to that. They'd never had a complaint about his work-from-home quality, but suspiciously started saying his performance was a concern now that he'd asked to keep working from home. And, they eventually fired him. They eventually fired him for refusing to return to working in the office. And a tribunal has found that doing so was discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing to work from home was a reasonable adjustment for a disability, and in the UK, you are, in theory at least, required by law to make reasonable accommodations for disabled workers. The tribunal also found that the claims that his performance had gone downhill working from home were, in their words, rather retrospective, and awarded him £14,000 for lost earnings and £12,000 compensation. This is a really fucking big deal, because it creates the standard here in the UK that if you are disabled, in this example autistic, and your company at some point in the past allowed work from home as a thing that could be done, and there is nothing in your work history that says your work is of a lower quality from home, then working from home is a reasonable accommodation for disability, which is a really, really, really big thing to have a tribunal find is the case. It should make it, in theory, a lot easier for disabled people in the UK to make the case that they should be allowed to work from home as a reasonable accommodation for disability.
Yeah.
It cannot be overstated how big a fucking deal that is.
And that is great. I mean, both of us are autistic, Laura, and everyone in our polycule is, and our various mutual and non-mutual partners have, they're not self-employed like you and I are, and have had to have some of these discussions, with workplaces and that, and certainly, in some cases, there have been allowances just made without anyone having to be strong-armed, which is great, because if the work you do does not need to have you in an office, if it can all be done remotely, why force them in? Why force anyone in? Honestly, it's a valid enough reason to just not want to go, regardless of like accessibility and stuff like that. But the autism factor as well, one of the reasons I've been sort of hesitant to do more full-time game writing stuff is fears about stuff like that. It's like physical and mental disabilities I have would make a lot of out-of-home work really fucking hard. Really hard. And I hate this and it is incredibly ableist, this push to force everyone into a workplace, which is, very rarely in my experience and observations about the quality of the work. It's about justifying the office space, or it's about control of the workforce and monitoring and paranoia that they're going to dick around at home, even if the work they're churning out is quality.
So good to see that being sort of put in writing that is a thing, and hopefully that helps others. A couple of other bits of news. We can get through this one nice and quick. News happened a while ago that a bunch of Sega's old franchises were being brought back, including Crazy Taxi. There's been a story this week that has confirmed some rumours kind of about that game. So the official line from a developer interview says that the upcoming Crazy Taxi reboot is going to be open world and massively multiplayer, which sure feels in line with some of the rumours that it was going to be a free-to-play MMO Crazy Taxi game, which seems to, from the sounds of it, be this whole batch of Jet Set Radio and Golden Axe and Crazy Taxi and all the stuff. They're like, we're bringing them all back. It does seem like they're maybe all being brought back in a free-to-play online-y kind of form, maybe. So we'll see how that shakes out, but I thought it was worth bringing up just to be if you're excited about Crazy Taxi coming back, just keep your expectations in the right spot on that one.
But that's also not the worst fate for a Crazy Taxi.
Not necessarily for Crazy Taxi. It's mainly the monetization.
Yeah, that's going to be bad.
But
mechanically, I could see that being interesting.
Online elements, sure, but it's when I hear these words, I'm like, oh no, these all line up with the rumor that it's going free to play.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
well, that's the thing. You couldn't possibly. No. Sorry. Oh, it made me laugh at the thought in 2024 of enough people buying a Crazy Taxi game to make that viable. That's really funny.
I mean, yeah.
No, it has to be free to play. It's the only way it would exist.
Yeah. You're not wrong, but also, just be ready for that. Fun bit of Elden Ring news we got this week. One of my favourite continuing to laugh at the people who are, taking FromSoft games way too seriously. In an interview with The Guardian, Hidetaka Miyazaki from Software basically admitted he fucking sucks at playing his own games in a way that made me very joyous. leading up to the release of any game, I'll be very hands-on playing it and getting as much time on it as possible. But after the release, I tend to not want to touch it because I know I'm either going to find things that I left on the table or issues that will bug me. And once I become a player, I'm powerless to do anything significant to change it. But then he goes on to continue, I absolutely suck at video games. My approach or playstyle is to use everything I have at my disposal, all the assistance, every scrap of aid that the game offers, and all the knowledge that I have as the architect of the game. The freedom and open-world nature of Elden Ring perhaps lowered the barrier to entry, and I might be the one who's benefiting the most from that as a player more than anyone else. TLDR, fucking use every cheaty strat in the book. The guy who made the game says he sucks at the game and uses all the cheaty stuff too.
I mean, it's like I have said, ever since Demon's Souls, I bring it up every time. Use every dirty trick you have, because that's what the game does to you. Those are the terms of engagement. Punish every mistake, because it'll do it to you.
I like that we are effectively equating playing a FromSoft game as if we are going to war with it. Because we are, in a sense.
Yes. No, that absolutely is.
Yeah.
It is a fight. The game wants to, I hesitate to say wants to punish you for making mistakes, because I don't think the games are as mean-spirited as all that.
But the mistake would have been you making the purchase.
Yeah. But I've always had that. Like, the game will use whatever it does, and it will use any fuck-up on your part against you. So if a boss AI can be easily cheesed, hey, the game's made a mistake, capitalise the way it would capitalise on you.
Next time someone criticises you for using the Mimic tier and summoning in an online player and using the Scarlet Rot dragon head to do damage over time and then hiding in a corner where the boss can't quite reach you half the time, go, it's what the game creator would have wanted. This is how he plays the game.
Yeah, like, if you want to make the game harder for yourself, by all means. People do that all the time, level 1 runs of Final Fantasy or whatever. I'm all for it. But we need to, really get away from this idea that you making the game harder for yourself is you playing the game at its default. It's not. You are making the game harder for yourself. You are going out of your way to change things. Someone using the Mimic tier or using co-op, they're using the tools that are just given to the player. And the game has never made a value judgment on that shit.
Yeah.
So if you are choosing not to use the tools the game gives you, you are officially, in my opinion, doing a particular type of run. You're not playing it normally. You are doing a particular run. You are doing a no-summon run. That it's not the proper Elden Ring experience. It's a no-summon run. Own it. Be proud of it. Hey, you pride yourself on playing the game, as tough as it can be. But that's your choice, and that's something you are making happen. That's an active choice. That is not the default experience.
Exactly. Just a nice bit of news here. After the continual fight of seeing generative AI shit popping up in games left, right, and centre, at least one company we can just breathe a sigh of relief for a minute and not expect that to happen with. Nintendo President Furukawa said in a recent investor Q&A, Nintendo ain't gonna have anything to do with that shit. Specifically because they recognize it as theft. I will read his quote. Generative AI, which has been a hot topic in recent years, it can be more creative, but we also recognise that it has issues with intellectual property rights. Our company has decades of know-how in creating optimal gaming experiences for our customers.
And decades of experience defending its copyrights.
Mm-hmm. While we are flexible in responding to technological developments...
And appearances of their copyrights.
We hope to continue to deliver value that is unique to us and cannot be created through technology alone. Yeah, not surprising that a company that is this protective of its own intellectual property wouldn't be a fan of feed all of the copyrighted material into a machine that spits out new stuff.
Nonsense. No, they're the ones who have a consistent principle. That's the only difference at play here. Everybody else is happy to get on this fucking train.
Yeah, it's nice to know they don't plan to, at least. That's one company we can put on the not planning to list. And another nice bit of work that of news that we can pop in, and this is just a nice quick one. More video game unions. Bethesda's Montreal studio has filed to unionize with the Communication Workers of America. They will strive, to read their quote, "As a union, we will strive to make Bethesda Game Studios a supportive workplace that fosters creativity and talent. This will allow us to keep creating some of the best video games in the industry, in the jobs and studios we all love. I wish them good luck." This is the second ZeniMax studio that is unionizing. It's always just good news to hear more unions are attempting to form.
Yep.
Really feels like we've hit a point where the momentum can't be stopped at this point, and that's great to know.
Yeah, I'm excited because it's one of those situations where every new one that springs up has the potential to inspire 2, 3, 5, 10 more that can then come up, and it just continues to grow in that way, and we will continue to see this for a while. We're not going to get 100% union membership across disciplines, but every step is another step in the right direction. That's great news.
Yeah. And we got one last thing I want to very quickly talk about. And this is not a concrete piece of news, but it's a thing that I think is funny no matter how it's going to end up playing out. So, we acknowledged the other week that Beyond Good and Evil had some kind of remaster had happened. I'm fascinated by this remaster. I'm not going to give Ubisoft my money, but I am fascinated by it for a very specific reason, which is, how we haven't seen Beyond Good and Evil 2 in 6 years? And the last time it was shown off, it was being teased as a prequel in which, everything that happens isn't really canon because all the characters are clones of themselves in another universe or some shit, and that it wasn't at all going to address the cliffhanger ending of the original linear narrative game. So it turns out there is some pretty significant new content at the end of this remake that very, 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 very heavily leans towards setting up a direct linear sequel to Beyond Good and Evil, the way that the original game did. It sets up a cliffhanger that really seems like moving forward in the story with a linear sequel would be the right move. And to me, that says that one of two things is happening, and I think both of them are kind of funny. Either, after originally in 2006 being a linear sequel, and spending most of a decade pivoting to being a open-world prequel, not canon thing, the feedback has been so bad that the reason we haven't seen it again in the last 6 years is they're pivoting it again to try and pivot it towards single-player sequel. Or that is no indication on what they're doing, and they're still planning to make a completely non-canon prequel open-world thing, and all they've done is doubled down on teasing a sequel they never plan to make.
So, I do have one, sort of key question. Did they make the ending of Beyond Good and Evil good? Because it wasn't good before. It was fine.
I liked it.
Oh, it was beyond good.
Boo.
They've not if you didn't like it originally, from what I understand, you're not going to like it now. They've tacked on some cutscenes and some things that are not fundamentally changing the ending, just setting up more. Wouldn't you like a sequel and not a prequel? Wouldn't you like a sequel?
Yeah, I really...
In a way that's weird.
I never cared for the very, most special girl in the world ending of that. I didn't mind that there was some sort of hint at a larger connection and so forth. I just really didn't like the way that ended. I loved the game. The game's phenomenal. There was so much in that I enjoyed, but...
It sure seems like it's doubling down on, wouldn't you love to know more about the future of this world and the future of these characters and the fates of people, and we're going to hint at things that could happen in the future.
Oh God, they're going to bring
anyway,
back.
Wait another 5... Oh, 1,000%.
Oh,
1,000%. Yeah, it's... I don't know whether I find it funnier if they've pivoted this game yet again into something completely different, or if they're still doubling down on teasing a sequel that's not the thing they're making.
I've never even
Both
heard
of those...
this game.
No, never heard of Beyond Good and Evil?
No. I heard that there was just tons of harassment and prejudice and abuse, up to and including sexual abuse at Ubisoft.
Well, this is why I said at the start.
Oh, no, I know, yeah.
I ain't throwing money at them, but...
Bring it back again, because Ubisoft's is a horrible hellhole, and Yves Guillemot's recent attempt to hide behind his staff by saying criticism of the games is a criticism of all the hard work his employees did is one of the most tasteless and disgusting things that man has done outside of the directly tasteless and disgusting things he's done. Either through action or negligence. He's a cunt.
A little bit. But that's everything for this week. We done it. We done it all.
We done it all. Done. Laura, what else have you done? Come on, tell us.
You can find all the stuff I've done at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. Things to look out for this week. There is an episode of Control Alt Access going up with myself and a guest host, Grant Stoner, in which we spend 40 minutes talking about Elden Ring and accessibility and difficulty modes from a perspective of two disabled gamers. So, that's going to be fun. I'm sure the internet will have a very normal time with that one. Look forward to that. That'll probably be up by the time this goes up. That's the big one. Go check that video out. What about you, Conrad? Where are you at on the internet?
You can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky, and you can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. You can make anti-capitalist propaganda and Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
That's true. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports this podcast, the Jimquisition show, which very well received by the rational, normal human beings. This week's Jimquisition episode, called Woke Chins, the latest silly outrage, has pissed off the right people. Right having several meanings. Really pissed off some TERFs. Caused a bunch of people on Twitter to debate the physical advantages I have over cis women in professional wrestling. Speaking of which, this Sunday, if you can get yo ass to Huddersfield, I will be hosting Tidal Wrestling's upcoming show, Pause Out for Summer. That'll be at Parish in Huddersfield. That's this Sunday, July 7th. Do come along. I'll be there doing all of the MC stuff. I will be the commander of ceremonies, and it will be a good laugh, and I am almost always downstairs afterwards having a little bit of a drink or what have you, so do come by, say hello. Also, Parish has got really good food. I can recommend it. That's that. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting and all of that good stuff. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.